In this video, I'm breaking down what is probably our most profitable B2B marketing tactic and why it is so good at generating qualified leads. You might be thinking, okay, the catch is that this is either overly complicated or requires a lot of upfront cost before getting any returns. The reality is that it took me just a few hours to plan, research, and get live, and costs in the region of £200 to £300. There is one thing to keep in mind with this tactic though. It does vary immensely on finding the right keyword and in the right niche as well. So therefore your results will vary depending on your industry and the competitiveness of that industry. But trust me, if you get this right, your customer acquisition cost will hit the floor. Okay, two quick things before we dive into the details. Number one, Session Media are an award-winning B2B performance marketing agency. So if you are a B2B company and you're looking to generate qualified leads for your sales team, then head over to session-media.com and reach out via the contact form. Number two, if you're all about B2B marketing strategies and lead generation that actually works, then subscribe to the channel below. Okay, let's dive into it. Okay, so 3 reasons why I absolutely love this tactic. The first one is that it's rarely used in B2B, so it's still a huge opportunity. There's not much saturation. We see a bit more of it in B2C lead generation, but B2B, far rarer. The second point is that it takes very little time to set up, as I explained. And the third point is that it's low cost to set up, and even better, it's low cost to maintain as well. Okay, so what is the premise of this? Well, the concept is that it's a one-page website that ranks top 3 for a single or handful of highly profitable keywords. Now, as I said, we've done this on quite a few occasions, so for obvious reasons, I can't share the specific URLs with you, but I'm going to show you an example of a company that does this quite well. So if I put construction site broadband into Google, and I know that this is a keyword that does generate qualified leads for a sales team. If I scroll to the first organic listing, I get constructionsitebroadband.com. Now, the first thing you might think when you hit the site is that the site looks very reputable. It's probably got all the information I need to potentially make a decision as to whether I want a free trial or to give them a call as well. Now, if I jump into the navigation, you'll actually notice that this site is made up of just 3 pages. And this is how the concept of this works. So we've got a domain, constructionsitebroadband.com, that is highly optimized for that specific keyword. So this site has been built specifically to rank for the keyword construction site broadband. And I'll just show you some screenshots of a site that we're currently running at the moment that also does a very similar thing. So if you're in SEO, you'll know that a DR6 is of extremely low authority. So this is on a scale of out of 100. We've generated that domain rating with just 33 external referring domains, and the site itself ranks for just 7 keywords. So just to reiterate, this is one of our sites now. This is not constructionsitebroadband.com, but this is just a sort of a screenshot of some of the numbers of one of the sites we're running. So those 7 keywords have driven 29 clicks in the last couple of months. That's led to 6 bookings confirmed with a value of around about £50,000 in a year. Now, of course, there's loads of assumptions here that, we'll close all the deals, et cetera, but it's a really good way to get qualified leads coming into your business, and the cost is really pennies on the pound. So this whole thing cost me about £300 to set up. You could probably do it for far cheaper. So how do we build something like this? So where do we begin? So the first thing you need to do is essentially go through your approved keyword lists. Now, you might have that from running Google Ads activity, you might have that from running SEO activity, or you might want to start afresh in a keyword planner such as Ahrefs. So I've put some examples in here. If you're a call center monitoring software company, then your primary keyword might be call center monitoring software. So we can see that there's a global search volume of 200 in the UK. Ahrefs has estimated that at around about 30 searches a month. Now, you might think, oh, that looks far too little. But if you weigh up that everyone searching that keyword probably has at least some level of intent or readiness to buy, one or two of the leads that come from the 30 searches a month could more than pay for itself, right? So once we have our keyword call center monitoring software, we can go to something like GoDaddy and put in callcentermonitoringsoftware.co.uk. Now, hopefully you'll find that the domain is available. So they look something like this. So callcentermonitoringsoftware.co.uk, and you can register it. Usually they heavily discount it in the first year, and then the price slowly creeps up in years 2 and year 3, but not by very much. And the reason why this works is that Google still put a lot of emphasis into the keyword being in the actual domain of a website. Now, they have come out repeatedly and said that this is no longer the case, but we still have sites that do this very effectively, so we know it still works. Another example, if you're an office cleaning company, a commercial cleaning company, if you're based in Oxford in particular, one of your primary keywords might be office cleaning Oxford or commercial cleaning Oxford. So we can see that there's a similar amount of search for that every single month. Again, jump into GoDaddy, officecleaningoxford.co.uk, and you can see that this domain, the exact match domain specifically, is available, and again for a really, really cheap price. So the first thing you want to do is just make sure you get that keyword exactly right, and then check to see if it's available to register. Step 2, as mentioned, is to ensure that the exact match, so make sure the whole keyword can exist in the domain. That's absolutely vital. It's so important. Make sure that it exists in GoDaddy. So I've added another example here. So you might be a performance management software company. So enterprise performance management software.co.uk might be a really, really good domain for you, because the keyword enterprise performance management software is a highly profitable keyword for you. So another really good domain that you might look to register. The third part to this is using a very simple WordPress theme. So you can go into wpthemedetector.com, and if you see a site that you like the look of, then you can quite easily just see what the parent and child theme is. So I've just put constructionsitebroadband.com into here. The child theme is Hello Elementor. The parent is Elementor. So Elementor is really popular. It's probably one that I would recommend as well if you just want to build a quick and easy site. As we come on to step 4, this is where it also gets quite important. So the content of the website. Now, what you may have noticed is that constructionsitebroadband.com, the logo in the top right corner, actually says Melbeck, and this is because this site is actually owned by Melbeck Technology Limited. So if I just Google Melbeck, or if I go into melbeck.co.uk, you'll notice that the site pretty much looks identical to Construction Site Broadband. Now, more importantly, when you've kind of built out the elements of the site, and I'm not going to go too much into the content, what I will say though is have the keyword as the opening heading, so the H1 at the top here. If you can, reference it again in the intro, but then you're really just trying to build this site to convert, because usually in B2B, you'll find that the competitiveness of these sorts of keywords is relatively low. You should be able to rank this site quite easily with an exact match domain, with a keyword rich H1, and then the keywords sort of scattered throughout the site, as well as citation building as well. And I'll come on to that in one of the final steps. But one of the key things you need to do is make sure that you've got your footer, including a place of work. So you need to have the address that your company is listed at. Ideally as well, you also want to have a unique email address, and you also want to have a unique phone number as well. Now, I can see here that constructionsitebroadband.com don't necessarily do this, but they do reference that they're essentially Melbeck Technology. So there might be an association that Google is making between the two entities in this situation. So one thing to bear in mind is just make sure that the on-page content is tweaked in the new site compared to your parent site. Just make sure it's not absolutely identical, because you might find yourself in a position where Google looks at the two entities and might favor one over the other, or kick one out of the index, or something like that. So just, even if they're essentially saying the same thing, just make sure the words aren't identical to one another. And when I mentioned about the phone number and the email, just make sure that they're alternatives if you can as well. So even though the sites will look the same and say similar things, you still want Google to treat it as its own entity. So make sure it's got its own unique email address. So for example, in the case of constructionsitebroadband.com, I would have a hello@constructionsitebroadband.com or an info@constructionsitebroadband.com. I would also register another number in the same county code as my business address, but essentially just have a different number, because then you can also separate where the leads are coming from as well. So if we have the same number, we're not going to know if they come from constructionsitebroadband.com or from Melbeck Technologies, for example. So just make sure that your new site has a separate email and a separate phone number as well. And then the final part to this is create a business listing and link some social profiles as well. So what I mean by that is, again, in the example of construction site, broadband.com, list it in Yelp, Foursquare, wherever. There are services like brightlocal.com that can kind of build these citations for you. And usually the citations should be enough to rank the site alongside the exact match domain, a keyword-rich header, and then scattered mentions of that keyword as well. What I'm going to do is actually just show you the links that constructionsitebroadband.com have built. And as you can see, it's just 6 referring domains. So barely any, really. And some of these look like spam as well. If I come into the example of one of our own sites, and as I said, I'm going to keep the domain totally anonymous in this case, but I can say that we've built 33 referring to this site. As mentioned, it's a DR6 and ranks for just 7 keywords. You don't need to rank for a whole host of keywords. You're really only going after one specific keyword with this tactic. And just to give you a bit of insight into the types of citations that have been built, you can see them down here. So, although the DR is high, a lot of them are no follow. They're not really going to carry any page rank from an SEO perspective. Google will just use these consistent mentions of the domain name, of the address, of the phone number, the email address as like a trust signal to essentially build the entity of the new site that you've built. And that's all you need to do. So once you've done all those things, and as mentioned, it took me just a few hours to execute on all of this, and I think I did it on Saturday morning, you can subsequently just leave the site alone for a few months, and then Google will process it in its index, but it will take a few months. I think this one took a month or two to appear on the first page. It took another sort of month or so to hit sort of number 3, I think it was. And to be totally honest with you, the site that I've created is nothing special. I think if I put a lot of time and energy into redesigning the site, into making it look a bit better, we could probably improve the conversion rate. But I just wanted to test this tactic to see if it would work. And that about sums it up. There's not really too much more to it. I think the key thing is just being really patient with this. And of course, you can do this across a number of different sites, right? If you operate in Oxford, if you operate down in Portsmouth, up in Manchester, you could potentially register a domain for each of these locations, build out separate sites, and before you know it, you'll be able to generate sort of leads from a geographical point of view as well. So another sort of thing to bear in mind. But yeah, look, I'll stop it there. I won't go into this anymore. But if you did get any value out of that, then please subscribe to the channel. Incidentally, if you've got any questions or comments, then please leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video.